All right, so now it is time for us to complete the realistic budget based on research. This is also known as budget number 2. So now that you have figured out how to calculate or get your housing and to get your food amount for your realistic amounts, where we left off in the last video was for you to make sure this column is completed. So you want to go in and you want to make sure you've added those two things. And I want to just take a second and look at transportation, utilities, phone, internet and cable, clothing, entertainment, champ, beauty, and all that good stuff. So you might be wondering, how did I get these numbers? Okay. They're based off of my budgeted amount and also based off of what we already had saw in Social Studies 101. So remember, the chart is on Unit 14, Lesson 2. And you see the Create Your Budget chart. Now on this chart, remember we went through and we selected which ones we wanted to use in our budget. So you're pretty much staying the same so that you don't have to worry about, changing too many of these amounts, because you do want to kind of stay with what you have budgeted in, because that's the purpose of budgeting, trying to stick to a plan for saving. So for transportation, I actually kept this the same. $400 is what I budgeted for, which was a used car. And I'm going to keep that one the same. The only ones that I changed was going to be the phone bill. So I saw in my last budget that I had about $50 left over. That was me taking 10% out and giving me, the amounts that I kind of went off of the chart. So I saw that it's some things that I could have maneuvered or changed or, added to. So make sure you have the monthly net income in your calculator. I'm going to go ahead and add that. I'm going to go ahead and put that up. So I'm going to go ahead and put my monthly net income into the calculator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start subtracting some things that I kept the same. So for instance, my housing was $1,290. Oh, sorry. Let me go back to my budget. And $94. So right there, that's my new total. Okay. And so when you're going through, you want to make sure you're trying to stay at that budget, but notice you saved in the areas of housing and food, or you should have saved in the areas of housing and food. So then I'm going to subtract $400 from that. I'm going to then subtract my new food budget, which is $47.61. I want to subtract my utilities for $200. Remember, your utilities is going to stay the same based on the house that you chose, so that is not going to change. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my utilities for $200. Next on my budget, I have changed my phone bill from $100 to $175 because I saw that I had some wiggle room to spend some more money. So I'm going to change that, and notice that the chart in Social Studies 101, make sure these align. So if I went from 100, which was cheap, my next step up would be average for 175. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract that 175 from my budget. Then I have $50 in internet and cable. I kept that the same, so I'm just going to subtract that. $150. $50 for entertainment. $100 for champ. $50 for beauty. And then the last thing that you're going to subtract is going to be your savings account. So that'd be $644.58 for me. Uh-oh. $644.58. All right, that gives me the amount of $61.72. That is how much I have left over. So my money left over, what I put in here is $61.72. So after I have done everything plus my savings, this is how much money I have as a wiggle room. Okay. Now you have the option of going back up in the price of any of these so that you are either equal to zero or greater than zero. So you can be equal to or greater than zero, but this number should not be in a negative. If it is in a negative, this is when you need to go back through your realistic amounts and you need to subtract or take away whatever you might have changed, or either you might have to be cheaper than what you were, because this a number must be equal to zero or greater than zero. Okay. So ideally, you're taking your monthly net income, putting that into the calculator, and you're going to subtract every expense under realistic amount. And then you're also going to subtract your savings amount, and that is going to give you the money left over. If your money is in the negatives, you need to readjust your budget by either saving money and making it cheaper some way, somehow. Okay? After you have done that, you're going to then need to explain what changed on your realistic budget. What changes did you make? I changed the expense amount of my housing and food based on the research, which we know. So I made a change here and I made a change here. Then I changed my savings account to meet the requirements of the 50-30-20 rule. The 50-30-20 rule states that 20% should be in my savings account, which that changed from budget number one. Okay. Then I also changed my phone bill because I saw I had money left over in budget number one. And you see that here, budget number one said that my phone bill was $100, and I changed it to $175. Okay, your grocery list was already completed, so all that should be done. Once you have balanced this budget number two, you're going to basically take it, copy it. Okay, copy. And you're going to paste that budget down here. All right. Change the name of it to final budget number 3. So copy, paste it underneath the then life happened, the life event. So copy and paste it down here. Change the title from research budget to final budget number 3. So when I'm referencing budget number 3, you know which one I'm talking about. All right. Now let's go ahead and get through the life event. So after you have created everything, the life event is the next thing to take place, and which is going to determine your final budget that you have to submit. So last week I gave you a life scenario. This was generated at random, and I told you all to write it down. If you're missing your life event or you don't remember what it was, just let me know so that I can give that to you. All right, so it says type your scenario in which was given to you by Ms. Spalding here. My life event was a concert of $1,000. What I want you to do is, if you have a life event that's kind of vague, if it says concert or gift or, I don't know, anything that is different than having a specific name, if you have a car repair, be creative. Think about what car repair might have cost you $700 or what car repair might cost you $500. But in this instance, I had a concert. So I went to the Rolling Loud concert in Miami for $1,000. Notice I put a little negative so you know that that's how much was deducted. So the question is, after 6 months, based on your savings account, were you able to save enough money to afford your life event? If so, how did you plan, or was it an expense you could afford? If not, what could you have adjusted to afford this event? Respond in at least 5 sentences. So the first thing that we need to point out is that it says 6 months. So how are we going to, a life event really does not happen to you until 6 months. We have already created a monthly budget. Okay, so that means that this is the budget that we're living for month to month. So I've already done this, but I'm going to walk you through how I got to where I'm at. Okay. The first thing I want you to do is, if your life event is some type of expense, right? The first thing you need to do is add it to your expenses. Notice right here, I put in concert. Okay. If you need to add a row, you just right click and you just insert row below. Okay. So that you can get an actual clear row. And that looks just like, let me show you, looks like this. Okay. If you need to insert a row, if you need to delete a row, you can just delete the row like that after you click on it. All right, so the concert is the expense that you see here, concert. And then your realistic is going to go into your realistic amount, because notice you did not budget for the concert, okay? It was something that kind of just came up. So the life event is not a budgeted amount, but it's just a realistic expense. So I put down my expense of $1,000. Of course, if I added all these up and subtracted by my monthly, I would have definitely overspent. So this is not going to be based off of my income, but it's going to be based off of my savings. Since our event happened 6 months from us doing our first budget, we're going to say that our savings started out at $644.58. Okay, based on my normal, this is my 20% savings. I multiplied that by 6, and that gave me $3,867.48. Okay, so let's just go back. In budget number 2, you had a 20% savings cost, which is here. All right, all you're going to do is take this amount, multiply it by 6, and it will give you how much your budgeted amount for savings should be in 6 months. That's where the 6 comes from. Now, I had a concert. So instead of me coming from my monthly income, because obviously I can't afford a $1,000 concert in 1 month. Instead of me coming from my monthly net income, I'm going to take it from my savings, because savings is for a rainy day, it's for emergency purposes, but it's something that you're keeping on to your own money so that you're able to use it when you need it. Okay, so this is when you need it circumstances. You're going to take whatever happened to you. So in my case, like I said, I had a subtraction of $1,000. So I'm taking that out of my savings account because I can't afford it through my income. And that's what the question asks us. Were you able to save enough money to afford your life event? If so, how did you plan, or what was the expense you could afford? I didn't quite plan for it, and it was definitely expense, but I used it through my savings, okay? So I subtract $1,000 from this 6-month amount, and it gives me $2,867.48 left in my savings account. So ideally, this is my new savings account after my life event. All right. So all you're going to do is basically anything that you change to this final budget, you're going to need to explain it. And so you'll notice that when I get to life event, this is where I explain what happened. Okay. So I was typing kind of fast when I wrote this explanation, but I try to make it make as much sense as possible. So I use my savings account. For each month, I save $644.58. After 6 months, I had $3,867.48 to afford my life event. I could not use, let me put a period there. I could not use my entertainment budget because I only budgeted $50, which you can see that here. Okay, I only budgeted $50, so I didn't use my entertainment budget because I wasn't going to be able to afford $1,000 a month. So I only budgeted $50, and my leftover amount would not equal $1,000. So $50 plus what I had left over was not going to equal the $1,000. So it's no way I could have used my actual income. Hopefully we all can see that. If it was like $900 for entertainment, I'm sorry, I'm pointing at internet. If it was like $900 for entertainment that I budgeted for, and I only spent, and I had like, $60 left over, then yeah, I could have afforded it on a regular income. But in this case, I had to use my savings. So I explained that here, that my budgeted amount and my leftover amount would not equal $1,000. Therefore, I could not use my monthly income. That's the first thing. The second thing that was good is that I was able to cover the concert in my savings account. After the concert, I had $2,867.48 in my savings account. So you're just explaining what you pretty much did in your final budget. Once you have gotten this, you're going to screenshot it, because it's also going to be something that is a part of your final project. In the next video, I'm going to walk you through screenshotting and going in and putting this into your actual presentation that you're going to submit. So go ahead and take a minute and think about what you're going to do with your money, whether it had been subtracted from you or you gain money in this life event. But go ahead and figure out your final budget. Take the time and be sure that you are adding to whatever it is. If you have something that is already an expense that you just want to spend more on with the money that you may have received, then you need to change that in the realistic amount and not the budgeted amount. Okay. So for instance, if I gained $1,000 and I wanted to spend, I don't know, $200 of that $1,000 on beauty, I would change this amount and not your budgeted amount. So you would change it. Let's say I decide that I want to spend $200 on beauty this month. So I would go to $250 because this is the realistic amount that I spent. Anything that you do to your budget, you should already know, highlight it, okay? So that we can see distinctly what changes, all right? And then once you've done that, you just make sure you're explaining it, and then you should be good. So you can add it to your budget or whatever you might need to do. Hopefully there's no questions, but if there is, be sure to let me know, send me an email, whatever needs to happen.